The celebration filled every street of Valkyrus Prime. Colorful lights danced across the towering structures that reached toward the purple sky. 14 billion voices joined in songs of triumph. The Valkyrie Confederation had just established their 50th colony world, a milestone that marked their dominance as the greatest civilization in the known universe. Premier Korath stood on the grand balcony of the Central Authority building, waving to the crowds below. His silver scales caught the light of the 3 moons overhead. Pride swelled in his chest. The Valkyrie had conquered space itself. No force in the galaxy could stand against their might. Premier, we have a situation. Korath turned to find Chief Astronomer Threx approaching, his data tablet clutched tightly in his 6-fingered hands. The elderly scientist's face showed concern that cut through the festivities like ice water. What situation, Threx? Can it not wait until after the celebration? Korath asked, irritation creeping into his voice. I wish it could, Premier, but starlight in Sector 47 Delta has begun dimming. Over the past 6 hours, we have lost 12% of the expected luminosity from that region of space. Korath frowned. A dark matter cloud, perhaps? A stellar phenomenon? That was my first thought as well, but the pattern is wrong. Dark matter clouds drift slowly over years, not hours. This is different, and it is spreading. The Premier looked up at the sky, seeing nothing unusual with his naked eyes. The stars still glittered as they always had. How concerned should I be, old friend? Threx was quiet for a moment, his secondary eyelids blinking rapidly, a sign of stress among their people. I do not know yet, but I recommend we begin monitoring this closely, very closely. 3 days passed, and the celebration turned to unease. The dimming had spread across 15 degrees of the Valkyrie sky. News broadcasts switched from triumphant reports of colonial success to worried speculation about the cosmic anomaly. Scientists offered theories, each more alarming than the last. Military Commander Zelfan stood in the war room deep beneath the Authority building, studying holographic displays with growing frustration. His career had been built on certainty, on clear enemies and decisive victories. This mystery offended his sense of order. We should scramble the fleet, he said, his voice rough like grinding stone. Position our forces between this anomaly and our world. Threx shook his head from across the table. Commander, we do not even know what we are dealing with. How can we position forces against an unknown? That is precisely why we must act. Uncertainty is our enemy here. The fleet provides security, shows our people that we are prepared. Prepared for what? Premier Korath asked, entering the room with several senior advisors. Threx, what is your latest analysis? The scientist activated a new display. The room dimmed as stars filled the air above the table, but a large section showed noticeably reduced brightness. The dimming continues to intensify. We have now lost 48% of expected light from the affected region. More concerning, our deep space sensors have detected gravitational fluctuations. Meaning? Zelfin demanded. Meaning something massive occupies that space. Something that has its own gravitational field strong enough to bend starlight around it. Silence fell over the room. Korath felt his hearts beating faster in his chest, both of them pounding in uneven rhythm. How massive are we discussing? Threx manipulated the display, running calculations that appeared as flowing symbols in the air. Based on the gravitational readings, I estimate the object to be at least 10 kilometers in length, possibly larger. An asteroid? Someone suggested. No, Threx said firmly. The gravitational field is too uniform, too stable. Natural objects are irregular. This is symmetrical. You are suggesting something artificial, Korath said quietly. I am suggesting we consider all possibilities, Premier. Zelthan scoffed. Artificial? Created by whom? We have explored thousands of star systems. We have found ruins, yes, and evidence of extinct civilizations. But we have never encountered another living spacefaring species. We are alone in this galaxy, Threx. Your sensors are simply misreading natural phenomena. I hope you are correct, Commander. I truly do. But hope was not enough. On the fourth day, the dimming reached critical levels. Half the sky appeared darker than it should be, as if someone had drawn a curtain across the stars. Panic began to spread through the population. Emergency broadcasts urged calm, while governments on all Valkyrie worlds convened crisis meetings. Threx had not slept in 70 hours. His team worked in shifts, gathering every scrap of data they could. The observation stations in orbit pushed their sensors to maximum range, burning through power reserves at unsustainable rates. Then, at local midnight on the fourth day, they saw it. Premier Korath. Threx's communication came through on the emergency channel, his voice high with alarm. Korath had been attempting to sleep, though rest eluded him. He activated the response immediately. What is it? You need to come to the observation center. Now! Bring Commander Zelthan. Bring everyone. 30 minutes later, the leadership of the Valkyrie Confederation stood in the observation center, staring at the main display screen. What they saw would change their civilization forever. The object had been enhanced by computer imaging, its shape clarified against the background of space. It was enormous, a geometric construction of lines and angles that could not possibly be natural. The forward section came to a wedge-like point, while the body extended back in segments that suggested multiple decks or levels. Strange protrusions extended from the sides, their purpose unknown. How large? Korath whispered. Threx consulted his instruments with shaking hands. 12 kilometers from bow to stern, mass approximately 800 billion tons. It is moving at 0.2 light speed, decelerating as it approaches. Approaches what? Zelthan asked, though he already knew the answer. It is approaching Valkyries Prime, on a direct intercept course. At current velocity and deceleration rate, it will achieve orbital position in approximately 18 hours. The room erupted in voices, everyone speaking at once. Questions, demands, theories and fears all blended into chaos. Premier Korath raised his hands for silence, his mind racing through possibilities and contingencies. Commander Zelthan, prepare the home defense fleet. All ships are to achieve combat readiness within 6 hours. Threx, continue monitoring, and try to establish if this object is broadcasting any signals. I want communication attempts made on every frequency we possess. And the people, Premier? An advisor asked. They will see this object soon. The sky grows darker by the hour. Korath looked at the screen again, at the massive geometric shadow blocking the light of distant stars. Whoever built that vessel had technology far beyond anything the Valkyrie possessed. The realization settled over him like a cold weight. Prepare a planetary broadcast. The people deserve to know the truth. We are not alone in the universe, and we may have made a terrible mistake in assuming we were the greatest power among the stars. The object continued its approach, silent and unstoppable, casting its shadow across a world that had thought itself supreme. The Valkyrie had reached for the stars and claimed them as their own. Now something was reaching back, and the age of their innocence was ending. The Valkyrie defense fleet hung in formation above their homeworld. 127 warships arranged in protective spheres around Valkyries Prime. Commander Zelthan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Claw, watching the approaching object grow larger on the view screen with each passing minute. All ships report ready, Commander, his tactical officer announced. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Good, Zelthan replied, though his voice carried less confidence than he intended. The object had grown from a distant shadow to a visible shape, and what a shape it was! His military mind tried to analyze it, to find weaknesses, but everything about the vessel spoke of overwhelming power. The hull was dark, almost black, with sections that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As the object rotated slowly, lights became visible along its surface, thousands of points of illumination that might be windows or sensor arrays. The scale defied comprehension. Zelthan's flagship was considered massive at 800 meters long. This vessel was 15 times that length. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Premier Korath," the communications officer said. Zelthan activated the channel. "Premier." "Commander, under no circumstances are you to fire first. We still do not know the intentions of whoever built that ship. Do you understand?" "I understand, Premier, but if they show hostile intent, I will not hesitate to defend our world." "Agreed. May the ancestors guide your decisions." Korath out. The channel closed, leaving Zelthan alone with his thoughts and his fleet. He watched the massive vessel continue its approach, slowing steadily until it came to a complete stop. The distance between the alien ship and the nearest Valkyrie vessels was barely 20,000 kilometers, close enough that weapons could engage within seconds. "Sir, the object has stopped moving," Tactical reported. "It is holding position at orbital distance from the planet." "Any signs of weapon systems powering up?" "Negative, sir. In fact, we are detecting almost no energy emissions at all, except for what appears to be basic life support and propulsion systems maintaining position." Zelthan frowned. That made no sense. A vessel this size should be generating enormous power signatures just to operate. Unless their technology was so advanced that their efficiency exceeded Valkyrie understanding, or unless they were deliberately running quiet. "Sir, engineering has completed their analysis of the hull composition based on our scans," another officer said. "You should see this." A technical readout appeared on a secondary screen. Zelthan read it twice, certain there must be an error. The hull plating was 3 meters thick in the thinnest sections, composed of materials that registered as denser than anything in the Valkyrie material science database. The estimated armor protection exceeded the defensive capabilities of his entire fleet combined. "This cannot be accurate," he said. "We have verified the readings multiple times, Commander. That vessel could withstand impacts that would vaporize our ships." Inside the massive vessel, Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UESS Indomitable Will, observing the Valkyrie fleet with calm, professional interest. Around her, the bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, the soft hum of advanced systems providing background noise. "Tactical assessment, Commander Chen," she said to her first officer. James Chen pulled up holographic displays showing the Valkyrie ships in detail. 127 vessels, Captain. Mixed classes, but all appear to be fusion-powered with plasma-based weapon systems. Their largest ship masses about 600,000 tons. Shielding technology appears to be early-generation energy diffusion fields. So roughly equivalent to our capabilities from what year? I would estimate approximately 250 years behind our current technology, Captain. Maybe 300. Santos nodded slowly. The intelligence reports had been accurate. The Valkyrie were a young spacefaring race, aggressive in their expansion, but still developing their technological base. They reminded her of humanity during the early expansion period, before the Titan reclamation had taught harsh lessons about hubris and preparation. "Okonkwo, your assessment of their likely psychological state?" Santos asked. The xenoanthropologist looked up from her console, where she had been analyzing Valkyrie broadcast transmissions. "Terrified, Captain. Their news channels are filled with speculation. Some are calling for immediate attack, others for diplomatic overtures. They assumed they were alone in the galaxy. Our presence has shattered that assumption. Helm, ensure we maintain exactly this position. No drift, no unnecessary movements. I want them to see that we are in complete control. Aye, Captain. Position locked. Santos walked to the main viewport, looking out at the planet below. Valkyrus Prime was beautiful, with purple-tinted oceans and green landmasses wrapped in swirling white clouds. 14 billion souls lived down there, celebrating their 50th colony just days ago. They had no idea how close they had come to triggering a war they could not win. Captain, the Valkyrie flagship is moving forward, separating from their formation, Tactical reported. They are testing us, Commander Chen observed, seeing if we will react. Let them look, Santos said calmly. No response. We are not here to threaten, Commander. We are here to be seen. The Valkyrie flagship approached to within 5,000 kilometers before stopping. Santos could imagine the commander aboard that ship studying her vessel with growing alarm, realizing the enormous disparity between their capabilities. Captain, the Valkyrie flagship is charging weapons, Tactical announced. Energy spike consistent with plasma cannon warm-up. The bridge tensed, but Santos remained still. Stand by all defensive systems. Do not activate them yet. Wait. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, the Valkyrie ship fired, a brilliant bolt of superheated plasma lancing across space toward the indomitable will. The bridge crew watched, as the bolt struck their forward shields, and dissipated harmlessly, the adaptive shielding absorbing and redistributing the energy so efficiently that the ship did not even register a power fluctuation. Warning shot, Captain, Chen said. They aimed well above our center mass. They are trying to gauge our defensive capabilities without committing to full attack. And now they know, Santos replied. Commander Chen, please open a communication channel to the Valkyrie flagship. All frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Santos took a breath, then spoke in perfect Valkyrie, her pronunciation flawless, thanks to the linguistic analysis their monitoring stations had conducted over 2 decades. This is Captain Maria Santos of the United Earth spaceship Indomitable Will. We are here in response to your recent expansion into systems claimed by the United Earth Stellar Navy. We are not your enemy, but we are not to be tested. Power down your weapons and prepare to receive diplomatic communication. The channel remained silent for a long moment. Santos could imagine the chaos aboard the Valkyrie flagship, as they realized not only that the alien vessel could speak their language, but that it had been watching them long enough to learn it. Finally, a response came, the Valkyrie commander's voice strained. This is Commander Zelthan of the Valkyrie Confederation Defense Fleet. By what authority do you claim systems we have colonized? We detected no other presence in those regions. Commander Zelthan, humanity has operated in this region of space for 180 years. We have marked 57 systems for future colonization and scientific study. Your confederation has established outposts in 14 of those systems. Additionally, 23 years ago, your forces destroyed an automated research station we had placed in the Kepler 442 system. We have full records of that incident. Santos nodded to her communication officer, who transmitted holographic data to the Valkyrie ship. The records showed everything: the human research station, the Valkyrie scout ship approaching it, mistaking it for debris, and opening fire to clear the navigation hazard. The station's destruction had been captured from multiple monitoring satellites. We did not know, Zeltham said, his voice quieter now. We encountered only ruins and debris in our exploration. We believed the systems to be unclaimed. We know, Commander. That is why we are here to communicate rather than retaliate. But ignorance of our presence does not erase the reality of the situation. You are expanding into territory that humanity has monitored and claimed. That cannot continue. On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Okonkwo was analyzing the response from the Valkyrie government channels. Captain, their premier is requesting a formal communication. He wishes to discuss terms. Then we will discuss terms, Santos said. But first, They need to understand exactly what they are dealing with. Tactical, please provide the Valkyrie flagship with sensor data on our fleet composition. Show them where we are, how many ships we have, and how long we have been watching them. Captain, that will reveal significant strategic information, Chen warned. Yes, it will, but they need to see the full picture before we can have an honest conversation. Send the data. The transmission went out, carrying information that would reshape Valkyrie understanding of the galaxy. The data showed human territory, a vast sphere 400 light-years in diameter, with the Valkyrie space completely contained within its borders. It showed the positions of 8 Dreadnought-class vessels, 200 cruisers, and countless smaller ships. It showed 50 colony worlds, each more developed than the newest Valkyrie outpost. Most devastating of all, it showed the dates. Humanity had been spacefaring for 400 years, FTL capable for 180, and had been monitoring the Valkyrie since they launched their first artificial satellite. Santos watched the planet below, knowing that across its surface, the revelation was spreading. The Valkyrie had thought themselves the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Now they knew they were children playing in someone else's garden. Commander Chen, prepare the diplomatic packet. Terms for negotiation. Neutral meeting location. Timeline for response. We will give them 90 days to consider their position and respond appropriately. Aye, Captain. The indomitable will hung in space, a dark silhouette against the stars. Its presence a permanent reminder that the galaxy was larger, older, and far more complicated than the Valkyrie had ever imagined. The age of innocence was over. The age of consequences had begun. Premier Korath had not slept properly in 6 days. The emergency council chamber had become his world, a windowless room deep beneath the surface, where the leadership of the Valkyrie Confederation wrestled with a reality that challenged everything they believed about their place in the universe. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the damning evidence in painful detail. The human research station, peacefully orbiting a distant moon, conducting what appeared to be simple mineral surveys. Then the arrival of the Valkyrie scout ship, its sensors marking the station as unidentified debris. The weapons fire that followed, methodical and thorough, reducing the station to scattered fragments. We did not know, Commander Zelthan said for the 100th time, his voice heavy with frustration. How could we have known? There were no markings, no broadcasts, no indicators of active habitation. Frex manipulated the display, zooming in on sections of the destroyed station. Actually, Commander, there were, look here and here, identification markers in multiple languages, including standard galactic script. Warning beacons operating on reserve scientific frequencies. We simply did not recognize them as such because we had never encountered another spacefaring civilization. The point is irrelevant now, Korath said, rubbing his eyes with his palms. The humans have the evidence. They have been watching us, and now they are demanding we answer for our actions. A new hologram appeared in the air, this one showing Captain Santos aboard her ship. The image had been taken from their communication, and Korath studied the alien carefully. She was smaller than a Valkyrie, with smooth skin instead of scales, and only 2 arms instead of 4. But her eyes held an intelligence and calm that reminded him of Threx. This was not a warrior seeking conquest. This was a professional doing a difficult job. She offered negotiations, one of the council members pointed out. They could have simply attacked. With their technological advantage, we would not have lasted long. Perhaps they are merely toying with us, Zelthan suggested darkly, letting us exhaust ourselves with worry before they strike. I do not think so, Commander, Threx said quietly. He activated another display, showing the analysis his science teams had compiled about human technology. I have spent the last 6 days studying every piece of data the humans sent us. Do you know what I have found? Restraint. Explain, Korath ordered. Look at their dreadnought ship, the indomitable will. Its weapon systems are powerful enough to sterilize our planet from orbit in a matter of hours. Yet, they remain offline, not even at standby status. Their shields can withstand anything we could throw at them, yet they allowed our warning shot to strike them just to prove the point. Everything about their approach suggests they do not want war. They want acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of what? Zelthan demanded. That we made a mistake. That we are not alone. That we must share this galaxy according to rules we did not write. Threx met the commander's glare without flinching, and that we are not the dominant power we thought we were. The silence that followed was broken by an incoming communication alert. The council turned as a communication officer entered, his scales pale with nervousness. Premier, the humans are requesting a real-time communication link. Captain Santos wishes to speak with you directly. Korath straightened his ceremonial robes, acutely aware of how inadequate he felt for this moment. Open the channel. The hologram shifted, and Captain Santos appeared, seated in what looked like a comfortable chair aboard her ship. Behind her, the bridge of the Indomitable Will stretched into the distance, a display of calm efficiency and advanced technology. Premier Korath, she said in perfect Valkyrie, thank you for accepting my communication. Captain Santos, Korath replied in his own language, knowing she could understand. You have presented us with evidence of our mistake and demands for reparation. We are here to listen. Santos nodded. Good. That is a start. Premier, I want to be clear about something. Humanity is not here to conquer your people or dictate your future. We are here because you expanded into space we have monitored and claimed for nearly 2 centuries. You destroyed our property, albeit unknowingly, and you did so without first checking whether you were truly alone. We had no reason to believe we were not alone, Korath said. In all our explorations, we found only ruins of dead civilizations. We thought we were the first to achieve what we have achieved. I understand, and that is precisely the problem. Santos leaned forward slightly. Premier, humanity made the same mistake 300 years ago. We believed Earth was unique, that we were destined to inherit the stars. We expanded rapidly, claimed everything we could reach, and assumed silence meant absence. We were wrong. This caught everyone's attention. Threx stepped closer to the display. You encountered another species? No, Santos said. We encountered evidence of species, plural, dozens of them, spread across our region of space, all dead, all gone, but they had been there. And when we studied their ruins carefully, we found something disturbing. Many of them had destroyed each other through arrogant expansion and conflict over resources. She paused, letting that sink in. That discovery changed humanity. We realized that the galaxy is not infinite, and space is not truly empty. We began to slow down, to mark territories clearly, to monitor systems before colonizing them. We became careful, deliberate, and patient. That patience has served us well. Zelthan could not contain himself. You speak of patience, yet you arrive at our homeworld with a battleship that could destroy us all. That does not seem patient to me. Santos met his gaze without anger. Commander, I am here because you did not see our research station. You did not see our warning markers. You did not see our monitoring satellites. We have tried subtle approaches, and they failed because you were not looking for them. So now I am here with a ship you cannot miss, having a conversation you cannot ignore. Sometimes, patience requires making yourself visible. Dr. Okonkwo appeared at Santos's side in the hologram, carrying a data tablet. Premier, if I may. My name is Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, xenoanthropologist. I have studied your civilization extensively over the past 2 decades. You have a beautiful culture, rich with art and philosophy. Your people value courage, exploration, and achievement. These are good values, and they have served you well. But, Korath prompted, sensing the coming criticism, but you also value dominance and assume that strength means you are right. Your expansion has been aggressive because you believed there was no one to object. Now there is someone. How you respond to this moment will define your civilization's future. Frex spoke up, his scientific curiosity overriding his diplomatic caution. Doctor, the data you sent showed that humanity has 50 colony worlds. How many more systems have you explored? Approximately 8,000, Okonkwo replied. We have conducted surveys, established monitoring stations, and marked territories across a volume of space roughly 400 light-years in diameter. The number stunned the Council into silence. 8,000 systems explored. The Valkyrie had managed barely 200 in their entire space program. We are children playing in your garden, Korath said quietly. That is the message, is it not? Santos shook her head. No, Premier. You are neighbors who moved into a house without checking if anyone else lived on the street. There is a difference. Children need to be controlled. Neighbors need to communicate and establish boundaries. She stood, and the camera followed her as she walked to a viewport showing the stars beyond her ship. Premier Korath, I am going to tell you something that may be difficult to hear. Humanity could have revealed ourselves to you at any time in the past 20 years. We chose not to because we wanted to see what kind of civilization you would become without our influence. We hoped you would develop responsibility, caution, and curiosity about whether you were truly alone. Instead, we developed arrogance, Korath admitted. Yes, but that can be corrected. Arrogance is not a permanent condition, merely a dangerous one. What I need to know is whether the Valkyrie Confederation can accept that they are not the supreme power in this region of space. Can you accept limitations? Can you work within boundaries set by others? Zelthan bristled visibly. You ask us to submit to your authority. No, Commander. I am asking you to recognize reality. The Indomitable Will is one of 8 dreadnoughts in the human fleet. We have 200 cruisers and destroyers. We have shipyards capable of constructing vessels like mine in 18 months. We have fusion plants powering our colonies that generate more energy than your entire planetary grid. These are not threats. These are facts. Santos returned to her chair, her expression softer now. But here is another fact. Humanity does not want war with the Valkyrie. We do not want to dictate your internal affairs or control your development. We want neighbors who respect boundaries, who communicate before acting, and who contribute to peaceful coexistence in this region of space. Can you be those neighbors? Korath looked around the council chamber, seeing the faces of his advisors. Threx looked hopeful, already imagining the scientific possibilities. Zelthan looked angry but calculating, recognizing reality, even if he disliked it. The others showed various degrees of shock, fear, and resignation. What are your terms, Captain Santos? He asked. Withdraw from the 14 disputed systems within 90 days. Provide reparations for the destroyed research station in the form of scientific collaboration, not resources. Sign a formal treaty establishing clear borders and protocols for contact. And meet us at a neutral station we will designate, where we can introduce you to other civilizations who have made similar adjustments. Other civilizations? Frex said, his eyes widening. There are more? Santos smiled slightly. The galaxy is not as empty as you thought, Chief Astronomer, and you have much to learn about being good neighbors. Are these terms acceptable, Premier? Korath knew he had no real choice. The humans held all the advantages, but something in Santos's manner suggested this was not exploitation. It was simply reality asserting itself. We will need time to consult our people, he said. This will be difficult for them to accept. 90 days, Premier. Use them well. We will send coordinates for the meeting station. I suggest you bring your best scientists and diplomats, and perhaps leave your military commanders at home for the first meeting. Zelthan stiffened, but said nothing. The communication ended, leaving the council in shocked silence. Finally, Threx spoke. "We have 90 days to accept that we are small. That may be the hardest thing our civilization has ever done." "Or the most important," Korath replied, staring at the space where Santos's image had been. The sky above their world was no longer dimmed by the human ship, but its shadow remained, cast not on their planet, but on their understanding of the universe. 30 days had passed since the human ship darkened the skies of Valkyrus Prime. The Valkyrie delegation's transport vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel at the coordinates Captain Santos had provided, and what they saw took their breath away. Station Concordia hung in the void between star systems, a massive wheel rotating slowly to provide artificial gravity. The station's outer ring stretched 15 kilometers in diameter, with 6 spokes connecting to a central hub. Lights shone from thousands of windows, and ships of various designs moved in orderly patterns around docking pylons. This was not a military outpost. This was a city in space. "By the ancestors," Threx whispered, his face pressed against the viewport. "How many people live there?" The ship's computer analyzed the station's structure. Estimated habitation capacity, 50,000 individuals. Current sensor readings suggest approximately 42,000 life signs, representing multiple biological signatures. "Multiple?" Premier Korath asked. "You mean different species?" "Affirmative, Premier." Commander Zelthan stood apart from the others, his arms crossed over his chest. He had opposed this diplomatic mission, arguing that the Valkyrie should refuse human demands and prepare for war instead. The rest of the council had overruled him, and now he was here under protest, forced to witness what he viewed as his civilization's humiliation. The transport received docking instructions in perfect Valkyrie, and soon they were being guided into a hangar large enough to accommodate ships 10 times their size. As they disembarked, a human delegation waited to greet them. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stepped forward, wearing what appeared to be formal civilian attire rather than a military uniform. "Premier Korath, Chief Astronomer Threx, Commander Zelthan, welcome to Concordia Station. On behalf of humanity and our partners, I am pleased to host these negotiations." "Your partners?" Korath asked, looking at the other figures standing with Okonkwo. None of them were human. "Yes, allow me to introduce Ambassador Tresh of the Kresh Harmony, Coordinator Ven of the Minari Collective, and Hive Speaker Quillix of the Solon. They represent 3 of the civilizations with whom humanity has established formal relations." The Kresh ambassador stepped forward. He was tall and insectoid, with 4 legs and 2 manipulator arms, his carapace a deep blue that shifted colors in the light. "Premier Korath, I am honored to meet you. My people experienced a similar awakening to yours 80 years ago. I hope we can help make your transition less painful than ours was." Threx could not contain his excitement. "Your people have known about humanity for 80 years? Indeed, and we have prospered greatly from the relationship, once we accepted certain realities." Tresh gestured toward the corridor. "Come, let me show you what cooperation with humanity can achieve." The tour of Concordia Station was overwhelming. The Valkyrie delegation walked through gardens where plants from a dozen worlds grew under carefully controlled atmospheric conditions. They saw markets where traders from different species exchanged goods and technologies. They visited a medical center where human doctors worked alongside alien colleagues, sharing knowledge that benefited all. But it was the conversation with Ambassador Tresh that truly shook Zelthan's certainty. They sat in an observation lounge overlooking the station's docking area, watching ships come and go. Tresh had ordered drinks for everyone, a sweet beverage that Threx proclaimed fascinating from a biochemical perspective. 80 years ago, Tresh began, his translator device converting his clicking speech into Valkyrie. a Kresh exploration fleet encountered a human science vessel in what we considered our territory. We were not as aggressive as your people, but we were proud. We demanded the humans leave. They refused. What happened? Zelthan asked, leaning forward despite himself. We fired on their ship. A single warning shot, much like you did at Velkaris Prime. The human vessel's shields absorbed it without damage. Then they did something unexpected. They transmitted a message. Demanding surrender? Zelthan guessed. No. Offering to explain why we should not have fired. They showed us maps of human territory, ships we had never detected passing through our space, monitoring stations we never knew existed. They had been watching us for 50 years, Commander. 50 years, and we never knew. Tresh took a sip of his drink before continuing. We had a choice. Fight a war we could not win against an enemy who knew everything about us, or accept that we were not alone, and never had been. Our military leaders, much like yourself, Commander, wanted to fight anyway. Pride demanded it. But you did not fight, Threx observed. No, because the humans did something brilliant. They invited us to this station, which was smaller then, but still impressive. They introduced us to the Minari, who had made the same choice we faced 20 years earlier. Hearing from another species who had accepted human partnership made the decision easier. Zelthan scowled. You speak of partnership, but it sounds like surrender. The humans dictate the terms, and you simply accept them. Tresh's compound eyes studied the Velkari commander for a long moment. Commander, do you know why humans build stations like this? Why they maintain fleets and monitor territories they do not actively colonize? To control them. To ensure dominance. No. To prevent what happened to them long ago. Tresh activated a holographic display, showing images of Earth, humanity's homeworld. But the planet in the images was scarred, continents bearing visible marks of massive destruction. 250 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. Wars over resources, territory, and ideology brought them to the edge of extinction. 3 billion humans died before they learned to work together. The Velkari delegation stared at the images in shock. Korath spoke first. They nearly exterminated themselves? Yes, and when they reached the stars and found evidence of other civilizations who had done the same, they vowed never to let it happen again. Not to themselves, and not to others, if they could prevent it. The humans do not seek to dominate, Commander. They seek to ensure that no species has to learn the lessons they did, through the same terrible cost. Dr. Okonkwo, who had been listening quietly, added her perspective. Commander Zelthan, I have studied your military history. You have fought 32 wars among different Velkari nations before achieving global unity. Approximately 40 million of your people died in those conflicts. Now imagine that number multiplied by 100, fought with weapons that could crack continents. That was humanity's near-death experience. We learned that strength without wisdom leads only to ashes. The weight of that statement hung in the air. Threx finally broke the silence. So you enforce peace through the threat of overwhelming power. We encourage peace through the demonstration of overwhelming restraint. Okonkwo corrected. There is a difference. We show our strength so that others do not test it. We establish boundaries so that conflicts do not arise from misunderstanding. And we offer partnership to those willing to work within those boundaries. Over the following days, the Velkari delegation attended formal negotiations. The terms humanity proposed were firm but not unreasonable. The 14 disputed systems would be returned to human oversight, with the Velkari colonies given 5 years to relocate their populations. In exchange, humanity would provide technology transfers to help establish new colonies and systems genuinely unclaimed. The scientific collaboration terms were more generous. Velkari researchers would be granted access to human knowledge bases, with joint research stations established in neutral zones. The goal was not to make the Velkari dependent, but to accelerate their development in safe directions. But not everyone accepted these terms gracefully. Commander Zelthan spent his evenings meeting secretly with representatives from other species who resented human dominance. In a dimly lit section of the station's commercial district, he gathered with a Minari general and a Solan warrior caste member. "They speak of peace, but they enforce submission," the Minari general hissed, its tentacles writhing with agitation. "My people were explorers before humanity forced us into these territories. Now we are trapped, unable to expand." "The Solan remember freedom," the warrior buzzed. "Now we ask permission to visit systems we once claimed as ours." Zelthan felt vindicated hearing others voice his frustrations. "Then why do you accept it? Your civilizations have militaries, ships, weapons. Together we could challenge human authority." "Because they are always watching," the Minari admitted bitterly. "Monitoring stations we cannot detect, ships we cannot track." 2 years ago, a Minari faction tried to establish a colony in a restricted zone. A human cruiser arrived within 3 days. 3 days, Commander, to cross 50 light-years and intercept us. We do not know how they knew, how they responded so quickly, or where else they might be watching. "We need to change the game," Zelthan said, his mind working through possibilities. "A demonstration that humanity is not as benevolent as they claim. Something that would unite other species against them." "What do you propose?" the Solan warrior asked. Zelthan outlined his plan. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it might work. If they could make it appear that humanity had attacked the peace conference, that the humans were not the patient partners they claimed to be, then other species might rally to challenge their dominance. The key was making it look authentic, using stolen Valkyrie military codes to launch a strike that would be traced back to his people, but could be portrayed as human false flag operation. The conspirators agreed to provide resources and support. They would strike during the final day of negotiations, when all the delegations were gathered in the main conference hall. The chaos would be blamed on humanity's oppressive policies, driving desperate species to violence. What Zelthan did not know was that Concordia Station's security systems were far more sophisticated than he imagined. Every conversation, every meeting, every whispered plot was monitored by advanced sensors and artificial intelligence systems that flagged suspicious patterns. Aboard the Indomitable Will, which remained in the system as a security presence, Captain Santos reviewed the security reports with Commander Chen. "How detailed is the intercept?" she asked. "Audio, visual, even biological stress readings, confirming intent. Zelthan is planning an attack, using 6 ships crewed by dissidents from 3 species. They plan to strike the civilian quarters of Concordia during the final negotiations." Santos felt a deep sadness. He cannot see that this is exactly the kind of aggression we are trying to prevent. Send the full intelligence to Premier Korath. He deserves to know what his commander is planning. And increase security around Concordia without making it obvious. I want those ships disabled the moment they enter weapons range, but I want them disabled, not destroyed. Zelthan and his conspirators will stand trial, but they will stand trial alive. Understood, Captain. Santos looked at the holographic display showing Concordia Station, thinking about all the species represented there, all learning to coexist within human-enforced boundaries. It was not perfect, but it was better than the alternative. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the hardest part of keeping peace is not stopping those who want war. It is proving to them that peace was worth keeping all along." The attack came during the final day of negotiations, exactly as the intelligence reports had predicted. 6 ships emerged from FTL space at the edge of Concordia Station's defense perimeter, their weapons already charging. In the main conference hall, Premier Korath was reviewing the final treaty documents when alarms began to sound. "All delegates to emergency shelters immediately," the station's automated systems announced in multiple languages. "This is not a drill. Hostile vessels detected." Threx grabbed Korath's arm, pulling him toward the exit. but the Premier resisted. "Where is Zelthan?" he demanded, looking around the rapidly emptying hall. The commander was nowhere to be seen. Dr. Okonkwo appeared at their side, remarkably calm despite the chaos. "Premier, please follow me. We have secure shelter prepared for all delegates." "Commander Zelthan," Korath insisted. "Where is he?" "Your commander is aboard one of the attacking ships. He believes he is leading a justified rebellion against human oppression. He is wrong, but he will have the opportunity to explain himself after we stop this attack." The words hit Korath like a physical blow. His own military commander, the one he had trusted to represent Valkyri's strength, had betrayed not just humanity, but his own people. "How long have you known?" "We intercepted his planning sessions 4 days ago. Captain Santos wanted to give you the opportunity to handle it internally, but you were in deep negotiations, and we decided not to disrupt that process. Come, we need to get you to safety." Above the station, the attacking ships opened fire on Concordia's civilian sections, their plasma cannons sending brilliant streaks of destructive energy toward the rotating habitat ring. For a moment, it seemed the attack might succeed. Then, Concordia's defensive platforms activated. The platforms had been disguised as communications arrays and docking equipment, invisible threats hiding in plain sight. They moved with mechanical precision, tracking the incoming fire, and generating intercept fields that neutralized the plasma bolts before they could strike the station. Return fire came not as destructive weapons, but as targeted electromagnetic pulses, designed to disable rather than destroy. Zelthan watched from the bridge of his borrowed ship as the first 3 vessels in his attack group went dark, their systems completely shut down by the precision of the defensive response. "Impossible," he breathed. "We barely fired, and they have already disabled half our force." "Commander, they knew we were coming," his tactical officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. This was a trap. "Target their reactor sections. Maximum firepower." The remaining 3 ships, including Zelthan's, redirected their weapons toward what they believed were Concordia's primary power systems. More plasma fire lanced through space, and for a brief second, Zelthan thought they might actually damage the station. Then the indomitable will arrived. The massive dreadnought had been positioned just outside sensor range, waiting. It appeared between the attacking ships and Concordia Station like a wall materializing from nothing, its shields absorbing the plasma fire so completely that the energy seemed to simply vanish into the dark hull. Captain Santos's voice came over every communication channel, calm and absolutely certain. "Attacking vessels, this is Captain Maria Santos. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. You have fired on civilian targets, endangered diplomatic delegates from 7 species, and violated every treaty governing conduct in neutral space. Surrender now, and you will face justice. Continue, and you will be disabled by force." Zelthan stared at the human ship on his view screen, seeing his own vessel reflected in its dark hull like an insect before a giant. His weapons had not even scratched it. His tactical advantage had evaporated in seconds. And worst of all, he realized the humans had been 1 step ahead of him from the very beginning. "Sir, we have no choice," his navigator said. "We cannot win this." "We can die trying," Zelthan replied. But even as he said it, he knew the words were empty. This was not courage. This was suicide driven by wounded pride. Before he could give the order to continue, his weapon systems shut down. Then his engines. Then his life support switched to backup systems. His entire ship was being taken over remotely, its systems yielding to superior technology without resistance. "What is happening?" he shouted at his engineers. "The human ship is sending override codes. They are accessing our computer core directly. I cannot stop it, sir. Our security is like paper to them." Within 90 seconds of the indomitable Will's arrival, all 6 attacking vessels were dead in space, their crews unharmed but completely helpless. Boarding shuttles launched from the dreadnought, carrying Marines to secure the ships and take the conspirators into custody. In Concordia's secure conference room, Premier Korath sat with his face in his hands, while the other delegates watched footage of the brief battle on holographic displays. Ambassador Tresh placed a sympathetic appendage on the Premier's shoulder. "This is not your failure. Every civilization that partners with humanity goes through something like this. There are always those who cannot accept the new reality, who choose pride over peace." "He was my commander," Korath said. "I trusted him to represent our strength, and instead he has made us look like fools and criminals." Dr. Okonkwo sat across from him, her expression compassionate but firm. "Premier, what happens next is more important than what just happened. How you respond to this will define how the galaxy sees the Velkari Confederation." "What do you mean?" "Commander Zelthan used stolen Velkari military codes to organize this attack. He acted in your government's name without authorization. You have two choices. You can try to distance yourself from him, claim he acted alone, and that you had no knowledge. That is the easy path, and it would be politically safe. And the other choice? Acknowledge that the attitudes that led to this attack came from your culture's arrogance, the same arrogance that led you to expand into claimed territories without checking first. Punish Zelthan according to your laws, but also commit to changing the systems that produce someone like him. That is the harder path, but it is the one that will earn real respect." Korath lifted his head, looking at the faces of the various alien delegates around the table. Some showed sympathy, others showed judgment, but all were watching to see what he would do. This was a test, he realized, not of Velkari military strength, but of their character. "I will take the harder path," he said finally, "and I will need help. Our people are proud. They will resist change." "We will help," Tresh assured him. "That is what partnership means." The trial of Commander Zelthan and his co-conspirators took place aboard Concordia Station 3 weeks later. Conducted according to Velkari law, but observed by representatives from all the affected species. Zelthan stood before the tribunal, without his military honors, stripped of rank by Premier Korath's own hand. "Do you understand the charges against you?" the chief magistrate asked. "I understand," Zelthan replied, his voice hollow. "I attacked civilian targets. I endangered diplomatic delegates. I used my position to organize conspiracy with foreign nationals against the expressed wishes of my government." "And how do you plead?" Zelthan looked at Premier Korath, who sat in the gallery with Threx and the rest of the Velkari delegation. He saw disappointment there, but also something that surprised him: sadness. The Premier was not angry. He was grieving. "Guilty," Zelthan said. "To all charges, but I want the record to show that I believed I was acting in the best interests of my people. I believed humanity was oppressing us, forcing us to accept subordinate status through the threat of overwhelming force. I was wrong about the methods, but I do not know if I was wrong about the situation." The magistrate granted it, and she walked to stand before Zelthan. "Commander, you are right about one thing. Humanity does enforce boundaries through the threat of overwhelming force. We do limit the expansion of other species. We do maintain military superiority over everyone we contact. These are facts." She paused, letting her words settle. "But you are wrong about the purpose. We do not do this to dominate. We do this because we remember what happens when young civilizations with powerful weapons and unchecked pride meet each other in the darkness between stars. We remember because we nearly destroyed ourselves learning that lesson. And we will not stand by and watch others make the same mistakes." Santos gestured to the holographic display, which showed images of Concordia Station, of the various species working together, of the peaceful trade and scientific cooperation happening every day. "You see submission and oppression. I see species that are alive and thriving instead of extinct. You see boundaries as limitations. I see them as the framework that allows different peoples to coexist without conflict. You see our battleships as threats. I see them as the reason we have not needed to use them in a real war for 80 years. She turned back to Zelthan. We are not perfect, Commander. Our system has flaws. Some species do resent the restrictions we enforce. But it works. It keeps the peace. And until someone shows us a better way, we will continue to enforce it, because the alternative is unacceptable. Zelthan had no response. What could he say? She was right. The peace was working even if it was imposed, even if it felt like surrender. The tribunal sentenced Zelthan to 20 years of supervised service, working on humanitarian projects in neutral zones. His co-conspirators received similar sentences. It was harsh, but not cruel. Punishment designed to rehabilitate, rather than simply punish. After the trial, Premier Korath approached Captain Santos in one of Concordia's observation lounges. Through the wide windows, they could see the indomitable will in the distance, a dark shadow against the stars. Your ship will be leaving soon, Korath said. Yes, our presence is no longer needed here. The negotiations are complete. The treaty is signed, and your people are beginning the process of withdrawal from the disputed systems. My mission is accomplished. I want to thank you, Captain, not for the treaty terms, which I still find difficult, but for the way you have conducted yourself. You could have humiliated us. You could have destroyed our fleet at Valkyris Prime. You could have simply taken what you wanted by force, but you did not. Santos smiled slightly. Premier, humanity learned a long time ago that winning by force is easy. Building something that lasts is much harder. We did not want your surrender. We wanted your understanding. I think we have achieved that. You have, Korath admitted, though I suspect many of my people will struggle with it for years to come. That is natural. Change is always difficult, especially when it requires admitting you are wrong. But I have faith in the Valkyrie. Threx has already submitted 3 proposals for joint research projects. Your scientists are eager to learn, and that eagerness will help your civilization grow in positive directions. Korath watched his homeworld delegation preparing to depart, seeing how Threx was engaged in animated conversation with Dr. Okonkwo, the 2 scientists already becoming friends. Will humanity always cast this shadow over us? Will we ever truly be equals? I do not know, Premier. That depends on what you do with the opportunities partnership provides. Some species remain junior partners indefinitely. Others, like the Kresh, have grown to the point where they now help enforce the peace alongside us. Your future is not written yet. 10 years passed. Station Concordia expanded, adding new sections to accommodate growing diplomatic and scientific exchanges. The Valkyrie Confederation had withdrawn from all disputed systems and established thriving colonies in newly designated territories with human technical assistance. Threx, now Ambassador Threx, worked from a joint human-Valkyrie research station in neutral space, leading a team of scientists from both species studying ancient alien ruins. The partnership had yielded discoveries neither species could have made alone. One day, a young Valkyrie student visiting the research station approached Threx with a question that had been bothering him. Ambassador, I have been studying galactic history. The humans have the biggest ships, the most advanced technology, the largest territory. Are they the strongest species in the galaxy? Threx considered the question carefully, remembering the day the sky dimmed over Valkyris Prime, remembering the terror and humiliation he had felt. But he also remembered everything that came after. Perhaps they are the strongest, he said finally. But more importantly, they are the wisest we have encountered. Do you know why? No, sir. Because they showed us their battleships before they needed to use them. They demonstrated their power while teaching restraint. They enforced boundaries while offering partnership. That is true strength, young one. Not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to build something better. The student thought about this, then looked out the window at the distant stars. Will we ever cast a shadow like they do? We already do, Threx said gently. We cast the shadow of those who learned from their mistakes, who chose cooperation over pride, who became better by accepting they had room to grow. That shadow may be quieter, but it is just as important. Far across space, the UESS Indomitable Will departed from Valkyrie space for the last time, its mission complete. Captain Santos, now Admiral Santos, stood on her bridge, watching the stars slip past. Course set for home, Admiral, her navigator reported. Good. It has been a long patrol. Let us hope the next generation of Valkyrie remember this moment and choose wisdom over pride. That is the legacy we leave them. The massive dreadnought turned toward human space, its dark hull reflecting the light of distant suns. Behind it, the Valkyrie Confederation continued its journey toward maturity, no longer alone in the universe, no longer the masters they had thought themselves to be, but perhaps in time becoming the partners they needed to be. The shadow had passed, the lessons remained, and in the darkness between stars, peace endured, maintained not through conquest, but through the long shadow cast by those strong enough to show restraint.